The Joe Girardi Report is brought to you by your participating Tri-State Buick GMC dealership, by Jersey Mike's, the official sub-sandwich shop of the Yankees, by New York Community Bank and the NYCB family of banks. Visit them online at mynycb.com. And by Papa John's, better ingredients, better pizza, the preferred pizza of New York baseball. The manager of the Yankees is Joe Girardi. Joe, welcome. How are you?
I'm good, Mike. How are you?
You know, Joe, I was just alluding as I gave the lineup to Headley, who we go through this season, and his resiliency buried so many times by the fans, by the media, not by you, but you move him to first, he hits 300 for a month and a half. You know, you see who emerges and after an early drought at the DH, now here comes Headley, a huge pinch hit the other day, hitting 455 now in this series after 3 hits in the last game. I mean, he has been the ultimate survivor.
He has been. I mean, he's a real fighter is what he is. And it's not, just the last couple months. It's kind of been his whole career and what he's had to do here. And he's adjusted, and he knows how to fight back. And his hits have been big in this series.
And so does your team. I mean, for the second straight series, you spot a 100-win team 2 games. I mean, it's not exactly the design you would want, and your team has responded unbelievably. But let me start with the starting pitching, Joe. If there was one thing that you looked at that there was a vulnerability to, it was the starting pitching, because it wasn't, other than Severino, incredibly consistent all year. It has been brilliant in the series.
Yeah, it really has. And when you look at the numbers, I know it's somewhat, people might think it's somewhat surprising what our starting pitching has done, but I think it's better than people realize. When you look at where they compare to other starting pitchers, they were second in ERA in the American League, which is a lot of people wouldn't have thought that, but that's what they were, and part of it had to do a lot with Sevy and CC and the way that some guys turned it around at the end made a big difference. There
were a lot of guys that you had to show patience with and reclamate this year. Chapman lost his job, and look what he's come back to do. Tanaka had a lot of iffy moments this year, and look where you have him back to now in this postseason, pitching like the stopper, the ace that you always envisioned him to be. He has been brilliant in the postseason.
Yeah, his last 3 starts in the postseason and the last start of the season have been as good a stretches that he's been on. He has been, really, really good. And it hasn't just been strikeouts. I know he struck out, I think, 18 guys in 20 innings, but it's just the quality of pitches and how he's been economical and gotten us deep into games. And he's been brilliant, and he's been a huge part of this.
I was sitting close behind the plate in Game 5.
Yeah, we saw you. It's good to see you there.
Yeah, and Tanaka after the Beltran at bat, and nice job bringing the infield in, because that got overlooked. It always does when it works. But that was a gutty call, that early in the game. Now, maybe you're thinking he's going to hit it into the ground, or you think that Beltran hasn't been getting a lot of contact. That's a gutty call to call that, and it worked out right for you there.
Well, my thought process there is couple-fold. If Tanaka throws a good split, there's a chance that he's not going to center it up. It's going to be somewhat weak contact, so let's play the infield in and see if we can cut off the run. And we hadn't, let's be realistic, we hadn't done a lot off Keuchel over the last couple of years, so I thought, I don't want to just be giving them runs. Let's make them earn them, and it worked out well.
And, Joe, after that at bat, and after the Yankees got a lead, his velocity was more than I've seen he seemed to be throwing the ball harder than I've ever seen him throw it as a Yankee the last couple innings he pitched in that game. He was popping it after that.
Yeah, I think he was pumped up, and I think he felt good about his stuff. And you're right, his velocity was good throughout the game. And to me, that's important because it's when he has that arm speed, his slider's sharper, his split is obviously sharper, but there's also a bigger discrepancy between his fastball and his split, and that to me becomes huge.
I mentioned this about sitting there on that game, and I mentioned that I know you saw me then, and I said I watched you before that first pitch. You were very cognizant, and you've alluded to this a couple of times in post games, about the crowd. I watched you scan the crowd. You were fascinated by what was going on in the crowd before the game, before that first pitch there. You seem to be really taking it all in.
I really tried because, I said the crowd to me has been what I remember the crowd being, as a player, and it brings back a lot of memories for me, really good memories. And I'm just thinking, God, what an exciting time to be part of the Yankees and to feel this, for the players to feel this, and for me to get to enjoy it. I mean, I was soaking it all in. And there are many times in the games that I look around and I'm listening to the crowd and watching them bang on the outfield pads and just trying to soak it all in because it's a lot of fun.
We're talking with Joe Girardi before we get ready for a Game 6 this evening. This is the first time your team will take the field with a lead in the postseason. You've handled this team superbly through the postseason or through the whole season. Do you worry at all that there's any mental adjustment for your team now that they have spent 2 days as the team that's in front in this series?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I've actually thought about. I think we'll handle it well because I think we've handled things well all year, and I think the guys will take that same idea, win one game, and let's get after it tonight. But it is something I've thought about. We haven't been in this position the whole playoff time, and in a sense, you can look at it the last month. I mean, we were fighting the whole last month, and we never had a lead the last month. We ended up, clinching a playoff spot. But, I mean, it is a little bit different, and I'm curious to see how we handle it.
We heard reports that Beltran had a meeting with his team after Game 5. He called a meeting with the team before they left the clubhouse. And they also at least admitted to a man that they were a little unnerved at times by the stadium setting. Now, you know that everyone there has heard about how loud New York's been and how rough the stadium was. You know they're going to try and see if they can top that. Do you worry about your team at all in the Houston setting?
No, I really don't, because I think we get a chance to go up to Boston 9 or 10 times a year. We get a chance to go to other cities, in our division that can be, pretty loud. Toronto can be loud when they got 50,000 people in the ballpark, and our guys have seen it. So I don't really worry about it, and we went through it the first 2 games. This is not new for us. We've been back here. Yes, do I think they'll be in a frenzy tonight? Yes, but they were pretty loud when we were here before.
Joe, do you think it's just Judge and Sanchez settling down in this series the last couple of games, or have they just gotten better pitches to hit?
I think it's probably more of settling down, and I think having an idea what pitchers are going to do them. I mean, let's face it, they have not seen Keuchel and Verlander a lot. They have not seen any of these Houston pitchers a lot, and they're seeing them the second time now, and you hope that they're adjusted. They haven't seen their guys in the bullpen a lot. And, where Girardi's had experience and Headley's had experience and they know what they're going to do. These guys really don't. So I think they're kind of learning. I thought they adjusted to Keuchel well, with some big hits, and hopefully they adjust to Verlander as well.
You've been where McCann's going to be today. You've caught great pitches off great performances. You've been in that spot many times, luckily as a player. From that standpoint, if you're McCann today, if you're that catcher, do you have to make adjustments second time around when a guy pitches that kind of game, or do you just say, give me more of the same? What do you do with a veteran pitcher, a star pitcher, and you caught many star pitchers? So what do you do? Do you do nothing? Do you go to the same game plan, or do you have to make adjustments because it's the second time in 5 days?
I think the scouting plan is the scouting plan, and my guess is they executed the way they wanted it to, so they'll try to do it again, because hitters aren't really going to change that much. It comes down to the amount of mistakes. I watched the whole tape last night again of his start, and we missed some pitches to hit. I mean, yeah, he was really, really good. I'm not going to take that away from him, but we had some pitches to hit, and we can't miss him. I mean, that's the bottom line, because he's not going to give you a lot, and that will be the difference of the game if we hit his mistakes.
Severino, there was some concern. You had some concern, you admitted, about him being hurt. You checked him out. He's fine. Are you going to be looking for anything, any telltale signs that there's something wrong, or are you now convinced that there's nothing wrong?
I'm convinced that there's nothing wrong. I think that maybe the extra rest maybe helped him. Not as many pitches will help him. I talked to Larry about his bullpen. He said it's as good as bullpen as he's had in a while. He thought his command was better. So maybe that little rest is going to help him tonight, because we're going to need him.
How is your bullpen right now? Fully rested for anything you need?
Yeah. I mean, Canley threw a couple innings the other night. I mean, he'll be available to me tonight, but I don't know if I would use him multiple innings. But, again, I got Green for multiple. I got Robertson for multiple. So Canley might just be a one-inning guy.
Joe, if you're in a tie situation here in this game, do you have to, with your studs relievers, be cognizant of tomorrow at all? Does it ever enter your thoughts, or are you just all out today and not worried about tomorrow?
I think you have to try to win today, because it's like we talk about. You don't want to get in that wild card game. You'd much rather win your division, and I don't think if you can stay from getting into Game 7, I think you go for it in Game 6, and the guys will suck it up for Game 7.
Do you go the extra inning with a Chapman today, even if it's a tie game or something like that?
Very, very, very possible, yeah.
You do, so you don't even consider tomorrow.
No, I mean, I think
that's how I would play it, because who knows, tomorrow it could be 12-0. You don't know, right?
Yeah, you don't know what you're going to need.
So, I mean, you can't even think about that. You just try to win this game today, and that's basically it. You got to like the way your team has handled it. I mean, any concern? Let me ask it this way. After the 2 against Cleveland and the comeback, was it any different this time when you came back having done it? Did it help having done it? Was the team different this time as it started Game 3 versus starting Game 3 against Cleveland? How would you say it was different or the same?
Well, I think it was one way it was different. It wasn't an elimination game, number one. Even though we started down 0-2, it wasn't an elimination game. And number two, I think the experience in Cleveland gave them somewhat a sense of ease. That we can do this. We're going to our place. Let's just win tonight and see where we're at. And I think they had been through it once, and I think that it probably gave them a sense of ease. I felt good about the team going into Game 3. Didn't feel like I needed to say anything, so I didn't. And they proved me right.
Early on, you gave Bird at bats against lefties, even against Miller. And throughout this, you gave him a chance to play against lefties, against righties. And he has really answered the bell against lefties. That hit against Keuchel with 2 outs the other day. I mean, he has really done a job against left-handers, good left-handers in this postseason.
Yeah, we've never really considered him a platoon guy, but, there was, when he was coming back, trying to get his legs under him, if I was going to give him a day off, it was going to be against a left-hander, but we've always felt good about him, and he has handled it well. And I remember asking him after his first at-bat against Miller, I said, did you see him okay? And he said, yeah, I did. I saw him okay, and the more I see him, the more comfortable I will feel, which would be true off of any pitcher. The more you see him, the more comfortable you're going to feel. It doesn't mean that you're going to have success, but you have an idea what they're going to try to do to you. And I gave him that at-bat on purpose, knowing that he was probably going to have to face him again.
What was you thinking with Gray the other day? I mean, he pitched really well. He was pitching well, and not that I ever have any pause about Robinson, but that was a pretty quick hook for a guy who got a walk and a catcher's interference. What were you thinking?
Yeah, just that Altuve had a ton of success off of Gray. This team's seen Gray a lot. And Gray, as many times as he had faced Correa and Altuve, I think Correa had struggled off him. He was 1 for 14, but he had never struck him out. And Altuve doesn't strike out, so I figured I need a guy that has the ability to strike people out in this situation, so I'm going to go to Robbie, even though he's pitched extremely well.
Interesting. It makes plenty of sense. We're talking with Joe Girardi. And, before the series, I had Mike Stanton on, and he covers the Astros all the time down there in his job now. And I said, what guy scares you the most with in a big spot? He said Gurriel, and Gurriel looks tough with guys on base. He's a tough hitter, huh? He really he's a tough guy, yeah. If you hang him a curve and make a mistake, he hits it.
Yeah, and he's on fastballs, too. I mean, we've had a hard time with him the whole year, and we're trying to make adjustments and make pitches. But when we make a mistake, he does not miss it, and he's a very good hitter. And, the thing about Gurriel is I think he's 32 or 33. Yes, he's a rookie, but this really isn't a rookie. This is a mature kid that knows how to hit.
Yeah, and you've done a great job against their 1 and 2 guys. Those guys killed the Red Sox. I mean, they hit 400 in that series, and you guys have done unbelievable against Springer and Reddick in this series.
Well, for Sevy, that's big, because keeping those guys off base in front of, the next 2 guys, Altuve and Correa, is so important. So it needs to continue if we're going to win. Can you believe that this team, from where you started this year, is 1 game from the World Series? No, I mean, it's, I find myself scratching myself sometimes saying, man, this is great. I mean, I felt really good about them coming out of spring training, but, until you get into the year, you're not exactly sure what you're going to get out of certain people. And I do scratch myself, and I'm very thankful that we're in this position, and I have not forgotten, and I'm soaking it all in. You won a World Series in 2009, so you've done this. You won a World Series multiple as a player, so you know that. And you've been a hero in Game 6 as you were against Greg Maddux in '96. So you've been through all this stuff. Does it feel different because of the composition of this team this year? Oh, I think it does, and I think it, for me, it felt different because of our fans. I get kind of choked up sometimes when I'm looking out there, because it's just like I said, it brings back the memories of the old stadium to me, and the way that it was when I was playing, and it kind of gets me choked up and it gets me emotional because I feel like, God, I'm getting a chance to go through this again, where you never maybe felt that you'd get that feeling again.
You know, I'm not a big believer because I've seen teams that hated each other play great, like the A's,
Yes.
Oakland A's, the '86 Mets, and some of the Yankee teams didn't love each other either. So we know that, and they can still be great teams. This team seems to genuinely really like each other. It seems to be a team that, first of all, everybody likes. They're infectious, and it seems to be a team that's a very tight-knit, fun-loving group. It just seems to be a team that really does seem to outwardly like each other.
Yes, you are absolutely correct. It is a great clubhouse that holds each other responsible, but laughs and loves each other, and it's just a great atmosphere to be around every day. And that's another thing that I'm soaking in because I've had so much fun watching them do what they do.
All right, Joe, enjoy yourself. Good luck, and hopefully we're talking about a World Series against the Dodgers next week.
I'd love to see you in that first row again.
I'll be there.
Next week.
I'll be there.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, Joe. Joe Girardi, as he gets ready for this Game 6. And you can tell Joe is very emotional about this stuff. And you know what? Also, you can tell very reflective in his approach to all this. Don't read anything into that. You don't have to. But he is extremely reflective about all this. And what I told you before, because, you know, I knew he and I made eye contact that as he was looking around the stadium and he gave me a little wave. I saw him just taking it all in. And, you know, you can see and hear how emotional he is and how reflective he is of all the stuff that's going on, and also getting choked up about you fans who also booed the heck out of him, earlier in the series. So he obviously has forgiven that, and you did cheer him nicely the other day, which was fine. But when the series started, you can tell he's a little emotional and reflective about the whole thing. We'll see where that leads. But first things first, one game to the Dodgers tonight, tomorrow. It's Verlander and Severino. Back after this.